Okay, next here in ATC section 105, we're still in the introduction section, but we'll be going through compliance with attestation standards and who has promulgated these standards, as well as how they relate to quality control standards, and then finally our objectives of conducting an attestation engagement down here. So first, here at compliance with attestation standards, the compliance with the standards rule of the AICPA's Code of Professional Conduct requires its members, that's us, who perform professional services to comply with standards promulgated by bodies designated by the Council of the AICPA. And because of that, we are required to follow these attestation standards that we're going through now. And so here's the relationship of attestation standards related to, or how they relate to quality control standards. So as a firm, we are required to have a system of quality control systems, policies and procedures to ensure that the attestation engagement is performed correctly. And that's almost like our own firm's set of internal controls to make sure that we're following the proper standards. And so we have an obligation to establish and maintain a system of quality control to provide us with reasonable assurance that the firm and its personnel comply with professional standards and applicable legal and regulatory requirements, and that our reports issued by the firm are appropriate in the circumstances. And so all of this is detailed in QC Section 10, a firm's system of quality control. And now that section is outside the scope of this video series, but we can go there and take a look right now just so you have an understanding of where it is and what it looks like in case you want to go to it later. And we will type in this IP address here. You can pause the video to write it down or whatnot, but we'll come to the screen where we have all the statements on quality control standards, and we see these are issued by the ASB. And they only have one standard, and this is at QC Section 10, so we can click on QC Section 210, and it brings us to a document just like what we've been looking at in AUC sections, only this will be discussing quality control procedures. So let's click on that now. Here we have QC Section 210. See, it looks a lot like the AUC sections that we've been going through. And they've got some introductory material, some objectives, some definitions, and requirements. See, our objectives are the same as what we saw in the AUC section that we were looking at because they've pulled that directly from here. So let's get a high-level understanding of quality control policies as relevant to this particular section. We see that this lays out the elements of a system of quality control. So they boil it down to 6 areas, and that's the leadership responsibilities for quality within the firm. For instance, the tone at the top, relevant ethical requirements, acceptance and continuance of client relationships, human resources, engagement performance, and monitoring. So if we scroll through here, we will see that they discuss each of these topics in detail and give some suggestions on policies that can be implemented at the firm to allow you to meet those different areas and set forth good policies. And then just like the AUC sections, they have other explanatory material where you can get some more color on the particular rules. Okay, now we're back at ATC section 105, and we're down here at 07. And it says that attestation standards relate to the conduct of individual attestation engagements, and the quality control standards relate to the conduct of a firm's attestation practice as a whole. Therefore, since they're somewhat related, our quality control policies and our procedures related to our attestation engagement might affect the conduct of the individual engagements, as well as the conduct of our attestation practice as a whole. And if there are deficiencies or instances of noncompliance with our quality control policies and procedures, it doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't perform the engagement in accordance with attestation standards. We more look at these quality control policies as our own internal controls to help prevent noncompliance with the attestation standards. And so the objectives of conducting an attestation engagement are that we apply the requirements relevant to the attestation engagement. We report on the subject matter or assertion and communicate as required by the applicable ATC section in accordance with the results of the practitioner's procedures, that's our procedures. And we also implement quality control procedures at the engagement level that provide the practitioner with reasonable assurance that the attestation engagement complies with professional standards and applicable legal and regulatory requirements. So basically, we want to have good quality control procedures at the engagement level, and that should help us to make sure that we apply all the relevant requirements that we're supposed to, and then that should help us make sure that we report on the subject matter or assertion correctly. So in the next several videos, we'll be going through this ATC section 105 in detail and all of the requirements on how to achieve these objectives right here.